$0. Not a single cent. You expect gratitude from someone like me? The words fell cold and heavy onto the table as the richest man in the city pushed his chair back, leaving behind a spotless plate, a crystal glass, and a receipt with a bold, empty tip line. What he did not expect was her smile. $0. Not a single cent. You expect gratitude from someone like me? The words sliced through the quiet air of the upscale restaurant like a sharp blade. Forks paused halfway to mouths. Conversations froze. Even the low hum of soft music seemed to shrink away from the moment. Clara stood still beside the polished oak table. Her black apron was neat, her hands steady, though her heart beat hard against her ribs. In front of her sat Leonard Vance, the millionaire everyone in the city knew, owner of towers, donor to museums. A man whose name gleamed in gold letters. Across buildings, and on the receipt beneath a bill that could have fed a family for a week, the tip line read 0.00. He leaned back, watching her. Testing her, Clara felt every eye in the room on her back. Some curious, some amused, some already judging her reaction. But her face did not break. She gave a small nod, the kind given with quiet dignity. "I hope you enjoyed your meal, sir." There was no anger in her voice. No plea, no shame. Leonard's lips curled slightly. He had seen waitresses cry before, seen them argue, seen them beg. He believed money revealed the truth in people. Tonight, he wanted to prove a point to himself. That kindness only lasted as long as the promise of reward. He did not yet understand that. Clara's kindness had been forged somewhere far deeper than tips. Clara Martinez had once worn a uniform of another kind. Years earlier, the scent of hospital. Disinfectant had filled her lungs instead of garlic butter and fresh bread. She had served as an army medic overseas. She was barely 20 when she learned how to stop bleeding with trembling hands, how to whisper calm words into the ears of frightened soldiers, how to hold pressure on wounds while rockets lit up the night sky. She remembered the heat of desert wind against her skin, the grit of sand in her teeth, the metallic smell of blood mixing with dust. She remembered carrying men heavier than herself, her boots slipping in mud and fear. She remembered writing letters home for those who could not hold a pen anymore. One night, she had cradled a young soldier named Eric. He was only 19. His dog tags pressed cold against her palm as she tried to save him. He had looked at her with wide, scared eyes and whispered that he did not want to die alone. "You are not alone," she had told him, though tears blurred her sight. She had stayed until his breathing faded. That night changed her. It carved something into her heart, a quiet vow to treat every person in front of her as if they mattered, not because they could give something back, but because they were human. After her service, Clara returned home with a scar along her shoulder and another hidden deeper inside. The army paid for some of her school, but when her father fell ill and medical bills stacked like heavy stones, she left nursing school to help her family. Waiting tables was never her dream, but it paid for medicine. It kept the lights on, and every plate she carried. She carried with the same steady hands that once carried wounded soldiers. Back in the restaurant, Leonard Vance tapped the table with his fingers, so he said calmly, "What do you think of that?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Clara looked at the receipt, then back at him. "I think, sir, that I am grateful you chose to dine here tonight." A few people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some expected sarcasm, some expected bitterness. There was none. Leonard felt a flicker of irritation. He had expected anger, had expected her pride to flare up. Instead, her calmness unsettled him. "You worked hard for me all evening," he said, refilling water, smiling, answering questions, "and yet I left nothing extra? Does that not bother you?" Clara met his gaze. Her eyes were steady, dark, and deeper than he realized. "I do my work well because it is my work, sir. It's not because of what may follow." It was a simple answer, but it landed heavily around them. Diners looked down at their plates. No one spoke. No one stepped in. Silence wrapped around the table, thick and heavy. Leonard had built his empire by studying weakness. He knew how people bent under pressure. But this young woman did not bend. He stood up slowly, then almost casually he added, "I believe people show their true nature when there is nothing to gain." Clara nodded once more. "And I believe people show their true nature when there is nothing to lose." For the first time that evening, Leonard's expression shifted. What she did not know was that he had chosen this restaurant for a reason. It was small, family-owned. Rumors said the staff struggled. He had told himself he was running a social experiment, that he wanted to see how service workers treated those who withheld reward. But beneath that excuse lived something else. A quiet loneliness. A man who trusted. Contracts more than kindness. A man who had grown up poor and sworn never to be powerless again. He walked toward the exit, expecting perhaps a final glare from her instead. Clara noticed something no one else had. Near the back of the dining room, an elderly man sat alone. His coat was thin. His hands trembled slightly as he counted coins beside a half-finished bowl of soup. The bill on his table remained unpaid. Clara excused herself and walked over to him. Leonard paused near the door, curiosity tugging at him. The old man's voice was soft and embarrassed. He did not have enough. He had miscoed without hesitation. Clara reached into her apron pocket. She pulled out the small stack of bills she had earned that day. Quietly, she covered his meal. The old man's eyes filled with tears. He tried to refuse. She shook her head gently. "Everyone deserves a warm meal," she said. Leonard watched from across the room. She did not know he was still there. She did not perform kindness for his benefit. She did not glance around for praise. She simply did what she believed was right. A memory surfaced in Leonard's mind. Uninvited. His mother standing in a grocery store years ago, counting coins just like that old man. A stranger had stepped forward then and paid for their bread. He had never forgotten the shame in his chest, or the relief. He had built his fortune on never needing anyone again. But somewhere along the way, he had stopped being the boy who remembered kindness. He walked back to Clara's table. The room grew still once more. "You paid for his meal," he said quietly. She did not deny it. "He was short a few dollars. With money you earned tonight." She gave a small shrug. "It will come back to me somehow." Leonard studied her face. There was no calculation there, no expectation, just peace. "You knew I was testing you," he said. "I assumed," she replied gently. "And you were not angry." Clara looked at the receipt again, and she folded it neatly. "Sir, I have seen men give everything they had for people they barely knew. I have seen bravery without cameras and sacrifice without applause. A tip does not measure my worth. And a lack of one does not reduce it." Her words settled into the hearts of everyone listening. Leonard felt something crack inside his carefully guarded armor. He reached into his coat pocket. Not for a few bills, not for a token gesture. He pulled out his checkbook. He wrote slowly, deliberately. Then he placed it on the table. The number made the manager gasp. It was not just a generous tip. It was enough to cover months of wages, enough to help her return to nursing school, enough to lift some of the weight she had been carrying. But that was not all. Leonard turned to the restaurant owner. In a steady voice, he announced a donation to ensure fair wages for every employee there for the next year. Gasps filled the room. Some diners stood to their feet. Clara looked down at the check, stunned. "Why?" she asked softly. Leonard met her eyes. "Because you reminded me of who I used to be, and who I still can choose to become." He paused, then added words that would be repeated long after that night. "True wealth is not what you keep, it is what you give when no one is forcing you." The room rose in quiet respect, not loud applause. Not chaos, just people standing, honoring something rare and honest. Clara felt tears warm her eyes. But she did not let them fall. "You do not need to prove your strength by lowering others," she said. "Real strength lifts quietly." That night, something shifted in more than one heart. Leonard left the restaurant lighter than he had. Clara returned to work the next day, as she always did. Calm, focused, kind, but this time, She carried something new. Not just financial help, but a reminder that silent dignity can move mountains. People later asked her why she had not reacted with anger. She would smile gently and say, "The world has enough noise." Sometimes the strongest answer is calm, and in a world quick to measure value in dollars, her story became a quiet anthem. Because honor does not shout, it stands steady. Respect is not demanded. It is earned through action, and kindness given freely has the power to awaken even the hardest hearts. As the city buzzed on with traffic and deadlines and flashing lights, one small restaurant held the memory of that night. A night when a $0 tip revealed something far greater than wealth. It revealed character.